Backstage at Madison Square Garden, the air felt heavy. It smelled like cigarette smoke soaked deep into velvet curtains and old wood that had absorbed decades of applause. December air slipped in every time a stage door opened, carrying with it the sharp bite of a New York winter. December 18th, 1953. A Christmas charity concert. Sold out. 18,000 people packed into the arena. Every seat filled. Dozens standing along the back walls. Even the fire marshals looked the other way. It was for orphans. It was for Christmas. And the biggest name on that stage? Bing Crosby. At the time, Christmas didn't just belong to him. He was Christmas. White Christmas wasn't just a song. It was the sound of America in December. His voice was warm, steady, safe. It sounded like morning light through lace curtains, like a fireplace crackling while snow fell outside. He wasn't just a singer. He was comfort. But tonight, sharing that stage was someone younger. Dean Martin, 26 years old, rising fast, fresh off success with Jerry Lewis. Movie deals, hit records, fame accelerating by the month. But he wasn't Bing. Nobody was Bing. And standing on the same stage as a legend carries a certain weight, the kind that settles in your chest and makes it hard to breathe. 4 p.m., sound check. Dean arrived early. The arena was empty, quiet, flushed. On the edge of the stage sat Bing Crosby, alone, staring out at 18,000 empty seats. Dean walked slowly down the aisle. Each step echoed. "You must be Dean." Dean nodded. "Mr. Crosby, it's an honor." Bing turned with a small grin. "Just Bing." "Mr. Crosby makes me feel like you're about to confess something." They shook hands. Bing's grip was firm, not aggressive, not dominant, just confident. The grip of a man who had spent 3 decades standing in front of crowds and never flinching. "You nervous?" Bing asked. Dean hesitated. "Terrified." Bing nodded once. "Good. That means you care. The day you stop being nervous is the day you should quit." The conversation that changed everything. They sat side by side on the stage, legs hanging over the edge like 2 kids before a school recital. They talked about image, about persona, about the characters they played. Dean admitted the drunk act was just that, an act. "I don't drink," he said. "Never have. It's just easier for people to laugh at someone who seems a little loose." Bing chuckled. "I do the same thing. The pipe, the sweater, the safe voice. I make myself feel like someone they'd invite into their living room." "Does it ever bother you?" Dean asked. Bing paused. "Sometimes. When I'm alone. Silence." Then Bing asked something unexpected. "What kind of music did you grow up with?" Dean didn't hesitate. "Italian folk songs. My father used to sing them around the house. And gospel. We lived next to a church in Ohio. I'd stand outside and listen through the window." Bing turned toward him fully. "You love gospel?" "Do. It's honest. It's not about being smooth. It's about meaning what you sing." Bing smiled slowly. "Then sing it tonight." Dean laughed. "You're joking." "I'm not. It's not on the program." "Exactly." Dean shook his head. "My manager would kill me." Bing leaned closer. "This is a charity concert. We're raising money for children who have nothing. If you sing something real, they'll feel it. And when people feel something, they give." Dean looked out at the empty arena. "What would I sing? What's the song that means the most to you?" Dean swallowed. His eye is on the sparrow. "Then that's the one." 8 p.m., showtime. The crowd was warm, generous, festive. Croissant. A comedian performed. A violinist played. At 9 o'clock, Bing walked out. The applause was thunderous. He sang the classics, the hits, the songs people came to hear. The arena swayed and hummed along. 40 minutes later, according to the program, he should have thanked the audience and introduced Dean for his regular set. Instead, he did something else. "Tonight," Bing said into the microphone, "I'm going to ask our next performer to do something he's never done before. Something that scares him." Backstage, Dean felt his pulse in his ears. "Because the best performances," Bing continued, "are the ones that cost us something." Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Martin. The moment. Dean walked into the spotlight. 18,000 faces stared back at him. They expected charm. They expected humor. They expected the act. Bing stepped forward and said quietly into the mic, "Dean, sing the one from Ohio." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Dean closed his eyes, and he began. Why should I feel discouraged? His voice was different, less polished, more human. It wasn't performance anymore. It was memory. It was a 14-year-old boy standing outside a church window. His eye is on the sparrow. The arena went completely still. No golfing, no shuffling, no whispering. Just a man singing something he believed. When he finished, silence held the room for 15 long seconds. Then one person clapped, then another. Then the entire arena rose to its feet. And then Bing broke. Bing walked back on stage, visibly shaken. He hugged Dean. Not a quick embrace, but the kind that says something has shifted. I performed for 30 years, Bing said, voice trembling. And that was the most honest thing I've ever seen. Then he made a confession. I stopped believing a long time ago, he admitted. But tonight, I remembered. He turned to Dean. Will you sing something with me? What? Amazing Grace. No band, no arrangement, just two voices. By the second verse, half the arena was singing. By the third, all 18,000 were standing, their voices echoing into the rafters. For a few minutes, Madison Square Garden wasn't a concert hall. It was something sacred. The next day, newspapers were divided. Some called it brave, others called it inappropriate. But the charity raised double its expected total, because people had felt something real. And when people feel something real, they give. Years later, in 1977, Bing Crosby passed away. At his funeral, Dean was asked to sing. He chose His Eye is on the Sparrow. Raw, honest, just like that night. In 1995, as Dean Martin lay near the end of his life, someone asked him what he was most proud of. Not the movies, not the records, not the fame. Madison Square Garden, 1953, he said, the night I was honest. Sometimes it doesn't take a revolution to change a life. Sometimes it takes a dare. One person saying, drop the act, sing the truth. For one night in 1953, two legends stopped performing and started being human. And that mattered more than any hit record ever could. The final note faded and no one moved. 18,000 people stood in complete silence. Not a single clap, not a whisper. Bing looked at Dean, and for the first time that night, he wasn't smiling. His voice trembled as he leaned into the mic. I've been performing for 30 years, and that was the first time I felt honest. The crowd held its breath. Dean swallowed. The spotlight suddenly felt different. Not pressure, not expectation, just light. Backstage, after the curtain closed, the noise came rushing back. Managers arguing, assistants panicking. But inside the dressing room, it was quiet. Dean sat down and laughed softly. They're going to think we lost our minds. Bing shook his head. No, they're going to remember it. Dean looked at him. I've never sung like that before. That's why it mattered, Bing said. For one night in 1953, Bing Crosby and Dean Martin stopped being legends and started being human. And sometimes, that's the bravest performance of all.